Hello, and welcome to the very first episode of Think Music. Thank you for tuning in and for being curious enough to take a listen. In this intro, I'm going to share with you what I hope and aim for this podcast to be all about. But first, I should probably introduce myself. My name is John Henry Crawford, and I'm a professional concert cellist and recording artist. Just to give a brief background on me and what led me to start this show, I grew up in Shreveport, Louisiana, and picked up the cello at age 5. My mother is a violinist and directs a Suzuki school in my hometown, and that program was how music became such an important part of my life. For the first 5 or 6 years, it was just a hobby, but at age 11, I heard a particularly exciting concert that inspired me to get more serious and to start practicing more. Suddenly, the cello wasn't just a hobby, it became a passion that fueled me to practice hours every day. By the time I was 15, I took a leap of faith and auditioned for the Curtis Institute in Philadelphia, one of the smallest but most selective music schools in the world. And through a combination of hard work, a lot of luck, and unwavering support from family and mentors, I was lucky enough to be accepted. At the time, I saw Curtis as a sort of Hogwarts for musicians. The school is within an old mansion, and there's an enormous amount of history and magic in the walls. It's also a very small student body of about 160 students. But every year that went by, I felt closer to my dream of performing music for a living on stage, just like I'd heard at that concert years before. I later trained at the prestigious Juilliard School in New York City, where I now live. And over the years, I've been fortunate to travel all over the world with my cello, playing concerts from South America to Europe to Asia to about half the US states. And along the way, I've met countless inspiring musicians, young artists just finding their footing, seasoned pros who've changed me as a musician, and musical legends who've given me ways of thinking and exploring music that I never thought possible. And that's precisely why I've launched this podcast. We live in a world where music can seem like magic or mystery, where a perfectly polished track appears on your playlist, or a dazzling music video streams online, or a stunning live concert pulls you into the magic in person. But so much happens behind the scenes. There are countless hours of practice, enormous risks taken, financial realities, logistical puzzles, studios filled with musicians and engineers and producers trying to strike gold in a recording, and personal battles that shape every note you hear. My goal with Think Music is to pull back that curtain, sharing real stories from artists who've navigated these twists and turns. So, not every person you hear from on this show will be a professional musician, or even a musician at all. And not every conversation will be strictly about music. But the conversations we do have will always include music as a common denominator and as a creative force that shapes people's lives in other professions, and as a creative force that shapes the world itself. There are people out there who studied music seriously, who've done extraordinary things in other fields. People who've made important innovations, discoveries, built businesses of significance. And they will often credit early music studies as their training ground or preparation for what followed. There are also people who've had no musical training whatsoever, but still found a way to make an impact on music culture and industry. So for aspiring musicians, if you're on the hunt for advice about turning your craft into a career, I've been there. And I'll be sharing the insights I've gained on my own journey and gathering advice from other music professionals who've paved their own unique paths. For seasoned pros, if you're already well into your musical career, maybe you're looking for fresh perspectives in an ever-evolving industry. Our guests will bring new angles to consider, especially from fields you might not typically explore. And for passionate music fans, if you simply love the thrill of discovering the story behind the recording, the concert, or the piece of music that moves you, stick around. We'll be revealing anecdotes, analysis, and insights that deepen your appreciation for what you're hearing. Here at Think Music, my mission is to explore and illuminate the entire music ecosystem. From artists to administrators, managers, publicists, to producers, coaches, and beyond. This art form involves far more than just the people on stage. And often it's those behind-the-scenes heroes who make the magic happen. And I believe we can all learn a tremendous amount from their experiences too. Now, classical music is my foundation, my first love, and I've spent decades practicing, performing, and immersing myself in that world. But I recognize that classical music makes up just a small portion of the entire recorded music market. It's about 1 to 3% of everything out there. There is an ocean of music out there, spanning jazz, hip-hop, rock, folk, EDM, and I plan to dive into these genres, learn from the people who make them, and share those discoveries with you. Because fundamentally, I believe that no matter the style, music speaks to all of us, and it's an essential part of our humanity. It allows us to feel, say, and think things that we often can't put into words. And it's also a connecting force that brings us together not just in concerts, but in many other unseen ways. So, what can you expect from each episode? We'll talk with world-class artists about peak performance, how they got where they are, what they think about, and how they approach their craft. We'll talk about career highs and lows, marketing and branding, finding mentors, dealing with performance anxiety, burnout, and everything in between. We'll talk shop with the people behind the curtain, producers, managers, labels, so you can get a holistic understanding of how all this works. And if you're more of a dedicated listener, we'll talk about how you can cultivate a deeper appreciation for your favorite music. We'll unpack what exactly makes it beautiful, the secret sauce, if you will, and maybe even introduce you to music you never expected to like. While I'm still very active as a performer and recording artist, this year I'm committing to all of you. I will release a new opus, that's what we're calling these episodes, every single week, rain or shine, until the end of 2025. If you do me the small favor of subscribing or following this podcast, I promise you'll get a brand new conversation each and every week. This is an experiment, and one that I have every intention of putting all my spare time into to make work. But obviously, if it doesn't resonate with people as much as I hope, I might reconsider the duration. So I guess the fate of this podcast is really in all your hands, or rather in all of your ears. I'm aiming to bring on a fresh guest every week, someone who will inspire, challenge, and open our minds to different facets of the music world. But every now and then, it might just be me and you diving into a particular topic that I find important. In those solo episodes, I'll share personal stories, lessons learned the hard way, and practical tips you can apply to your own journey. And here's ultimately my hope for you. That each time you listen, you walk away with something valuable, be it a spark of inspiration, a practical insight, or simply a deeper love for music in all its forms. I believe that's how we can grow as individuals, and as a community of creators, listeners, and artists. So, since you're already here, make yourself comfortable, and if any of this sounds interesting to you, in this first taste of Think Music, I'd invite you to check out the following 2 episodes that I've released alongside this one. We've already had some really interesting conversations with some very fun, inspiring people. If you enjoy it, share it with a friend, a colleague, or a student who might need a dose of motivation or who's just curious about the magic happening behind the scenes in this amazing world of music. Thank you truly for joining me on this journey. I'm your host, John Henry Crawford, signing off for now.